Sit down, I have a story to tell you. My house was built in 1904. It's a single family home, wood frame setting on a concrete block foundation. I've been living here for about 12 years. Of all the weird things that my siblings and me have seen or heard of this house, this one event is my favorite. This happened to my brother. About 10 years ago, my brother and his best friends had started a garage band, playing mostly Spanish rock. Alternative music, but in Spanish. His friends could only get together on Sunday afternoons. They would practice into the early morning. They would usually call it quits by 8 p.m. This was the time I usually showed up and went to bed, because I worked the graveyard shift. This happened late in the fall, so the days were getting shorter. They just finished a long session when the decision to head to someone else's home came about. My brother handed his car keys to his buddy so he could load up the equipment. Everyone had filed out of the basement. The tricky part was that they needed to walk all the way to the back of the basement, up the stairs, through the kitchen doorway, down the hall, into the living room, and out into the front porch. Everyone was outside sitting in my brother's truck waiting for him. My brother was walking up the back stairs when he remembered that he had left pancakes in a to go container sitting on the speaker in the basement. He made the decision to go back. Now, the basement isn't clean. With full sight lines, there had been partitions made, and the boiler and the main heating unit are right smack in the middle. So, after my brother walks back, he's about to retrieve his food container when, out of the corner of his eye, he sees it. It's a shadowy figure right at his peripheral vision. This feeling of dread and uneasiness washed over him. We had been taught that if you're in the presence of a spirit or ghost and you felt a bad vibe, to say a quick prayer or to cuss at it. My brother chose the latter. He basically just told it, "Hey, fuck you, I don't have time for this shit." My brother started to walk to the back of the basement and briskly up the stairs, closing the doors and turning off the lights as he was walking out. The last light switch is on the opposite side of the front door. Luckily, the door was open and the light from the street lamp was flooding the living room with its amber light. My brother said he felt something at his back, but at no point did he turn around. As he flicked the last switch in the living room, it went dark, as the rest of the house. He stepped out and he pulled on the door, closing it behind him. Still holding his food container in one hand, he jogged down the few porch steps. He walked towards the front gate. Our house resides far from the main street, essentially having a large front yard but no rear garage. As he closed the gap between himself and his friend's laden truck, he kind of smiled and thought things over his head, mad at himself for spooking out when there was no reason. He climbed into the driver's side of the truck, putting on his seatbelt and getting ready to pull out of the parking spot directly in front of the house, when one of his friends asked, "Hey, wait, what about your brother? Isn't he coming with us?" My brother answered, "What do you mean? He went to work early tonight. He's already gone. Do you see his car anywhere?" The next question they asked, "So then who was walking behind you when you were leaving the house?" This happened to me about 2 years ago. I'm a high school teacher and make a regular habit of staying late into the evening. On one particular night, I left somewhere around 8 p.m. It's pitch black since no one bothered to fix the lights in this part of the school. Facility spending wasn't prioritized that year. I'm not too bothered by the dark, as I'm used to leaving at this time. I turned left from my door toward the quad and the front of the parking lot beyond it. On my left is my building. On the right are the backs of some portable classrooms. There's about 10 feet of space between both, all the way to the end of this outside hallway. I start walking, thinking about tests or the drive home, etc., when I hear some rapid footsteps behind me. They were far off, like someone just turned the corner at the opposite end of my building. I didn't think much of it since it's not unusual for someone of the dance team or the club to stay late practicing. Just some kids running around. I keep walking and don't turn around. The steps get louder and louder, sounding closer. The kids are coming my way. I can hear the echo of someone's running footsteps on the concrete walkway, bouncing off the walls on either side. Closer and closer. They're about to run right past me. I anticipate someone will pass right by me on my right, so I move a little to the left. And then, just as a footsteps sound right behind me, I await whomever. The footsteps completely stop. That's when I get spooked and stop walking. I turned around quickly and found no one there. I literally spun around twice to see where they went, and still no one. It's like 50 feet to the opening between the portables and my building, probably another 200 or so to the far end. There was nowhere for people to hide or disappear to. My only explanation is that it's either ghosts or an auditory hallucination related to overwork. I got those lights fixed within a year. A bus driver told us a story so scary. It sent one of the boys into a coma, and the others passed out. A survivor shared the story with me. When I was 12 years old, a bus driver asked during a field trip if we wanted him to tell the scariest story ever. The story he told was apparently so terrifying it made everyone faint. No one would say what it was about later either, just that was the scariest thing that any of them had ever heard. Kids spoke of it in whispers and rumors, but no one would ever repeat it to me, no matter how much I begged or pleaded. I was the only kid on the bus wearing headphones, so I didn't hear it. I had a brand new Walkman. Yes, I'm that old. And when all the other kids were telling each other scary stories, I put my headphones on. I can't even remember where the field trip was going. Science museum? Anyway, it was a long drive for a dozen kids. What I do remember is seeing the bus driver, well, not a regular driver, but a substitute for a field trip, looking up at us in the rear view and asking if we wanted to hear the scariest story in the world. Everyone chorused, yes, and it was so loud too. And the driver kept insisting that it would be way too scary for us. I remember me rolling my eyes, and I remember him saying, the story starts on a country road. Yeah, I tuned him out and turned up the volume on my Walkman. And when the tape got to the end, I realized that the bus around me was silent. I looked up. Every kid sat slack jawed and wide eyed. I turned around in my seat to my best friend, Isaiah, sitting in the row behind me, and I asked, hey, what's going on? His eyes flicked up to meet mine. He closed his jaw but didn't say anything. You okay? Why'd it get so quiet? Somewhere on the bus, a whisper. A few kids up front talked in nervous undertones. I think they said, don't tell them. Isaiah said in his monotone voice. He told us a scary story. What was it about? I asked, turning my attention to the driver who was also silent now, hand on the wheel, saying nothing, though he had a strange expression on his face, his eyes sort of glazed. Can't tell you, said Isaiah. Why not? He didn't answer, neither did anyone else. It was like whatever they'd heard had terrified them so much that they were locked into trauma, just frozen there by this shared, collective, horrifying experience that I'd somehow missed. I don't know if you've ever ridden a bus full of school children, but it is never quiet. There is always chatter. But right then, other than the fumble of the engine, you could have heard a pin drop. What was it about? I repeated louder. At that moment, a horn sounded. Everyone clutched the seats as the truck barreled towards us. Later, I was told the bus drifted into opposing traffic. The truck driver's quick reflexes and veering saved us from a worse accident, but the impact still killed the bus driver, left one of the students in a coma, spun the bus, and knocked a bunch of us out. Later, the rumor would spread that the bus driver and the students all fainted from the story, and that's what caused the crash. Anyway, I remember coming back to myself in my seat, sitting up, and seeing the blue sky outside. Seeing the day look so normal, except for the steam or smoke from the bus and the truck. I heard sobbing from my classmates. Some of us were sent to the hospital, the rest of us were sent home. Days later, after everyone was back in classes except the kid who fell in a coma, I asked a classmate, Hey Maria, you heard the story in the bus, right? She was doodling on a notebook for a math class, but a pen stopped. She said softly, Yeah. Was it really scary? She nodded. The scariest story you ever heard? She closed the notebook and moved to a different desk, saying loudly, I don't want to talk to you, Joshua. Several other kids tittered. I think my cheeks went red. I wasn't a social reject, not exactly, but I wasn't one of the popular kids either. I tried with the other kids who'd been on the field trip, but none of them would talk to me about it. Not even my best friend, Isaiah. He just kept saying, Nah, man, it's too scary. I snapped. Dude, just like summarize it if it's too scary. What was it even about? I'll tell you when I'm 55. 55? I don't want to have to think about it. Bro, just let it go. His refusal almost broke apart our friendship. But eventually, I accepted that nobody was gonna tell me whatever had traumatized them so badly. It's a mystery I have agonized over for decades. Just last year, I found a note in my Google Calendar that I apparently made as a reminder to myself, telling me Isaiah's birthday, 55. I reached out, partly to wish him a happy birthday, but also to ask if we could catch up. We hadn't seen each other since our high school reunion, and we arranged to meet for coffee. When I arrived, I was surprised to see his eyes glassy and yellowed. He looked much older than 55. I tried to hide my shock, but he just smiled and said, Pancreatic cancer. I've got a few months, probably. Oh, I said. Oh shit, I'm sorry. You look good though. He raised his cup to me. Looks like you're still 40 years old. How's life treating you? I pulled up a chair and told him how I'd married and divorced. Same, he said. How I was an electrician and occasionally a freelance writer. She talked about recycling and community gardens, about his two grandchildren, and how he founded a non-profit because he wanted a better world for them. And as I began to reminisce about our school years, he raised a hand and said, "Before you ask, I'm not gonna tell you the bus story." But he shook his head, told me that the students who heard all wished they hadn't, every single one. Trust me when I tell you, I say this with love. Don't ask. If you hear it, you'll wish you hadn't, brother. Let it go. In spite of my disappointment, it was good to see him and catch up. It was also one of the saddest goodbyes I ever said, because I knew just by looking at him that it would be the last one. After that conversation, I finally accepted that the mystery would go unsolved. Until yesterday. Yesterday, it happened by pure accident. I finally heard it. The story the bus driver told us. I was at a local bar, and I overheard from a nearby table a woman say, all telling scary stories, and the driver said, "Do you want me to tell you the scariest story?" I immediately broke off from my own conversation and craned my neck to see who was speaking. It was a middle aged woman. I didn't recognize her at first in the low light, but as she kept talking, I realized Maria. This was little Maria. Last I'd seen her, she'd been 12 years old. She'd gone to a different junior high and high school than Isaiah and me, but in her brown curly hair and the sideways quirk of her mouth, she talked. It was definitely her. Either she'd moved back to her hometown or else, like me, had never left. Small world. The chatter was loud in the bar. I missed the next few words. Are you serious? Gasped the girl at her table. It's all true. Shinji fell into a coma. Devin's stepfather stabbed him. Mitsuko died at a wedding when the cake was smashed into her face, and one of the dowels went through her eye. More gasps could be heard out of them. All of them happened like the driver said. Isaiah was 55 when the cancer got to him, and he and I were the last two. Oh, but the craziest thing? There was one other kid on the bus who wasn't listening. Her voice got lower, and I had to move closer, walking near a table. The driver said he saved him for last and said Joshua dies in 3 days after he hears this story. And then the truck hit, just like the driver had told us it would right at the beginning. And poor Shinji fell into his coma, and that poor kid, Joshua. Joshua never stopped asking. He asked all the time, "What was the story? What's the story?" We used to joke how if we never told him, maybe he'd never die. A strangle sound escaped my throat, and Maria looked up, and I hurried away. And I think she said my name, Isaiah. May he rest in peace, was right. He and the others protected me all these years. Damn it, brother. You were right. I wish I never heard about it. Subscribe for more chilling tales.